Hi, I'm Bill from CJ Pony Parts. If you own a classic Mustang, and by classic I mean anything from a 65 shown here all the way up to the Fox body Mustangs, at some point in time you're going to have to replace weather stripping. Weather stripping is made of rubber, in many cases a soft rubber, which over time is going to dry and crack and make it no longer functional. We've already showed you several different weather strip repairs on the classic Mustangs like our 65 shown here. The one we get asked about a lot is the trunk weather stripping. The trunk's a little more difficult to do because it has to be glued on, so a lot of people kind of shy away from doing it. So today we're going to show you the correct way to install a trunk weather strip using our 65 Mustang Coupe. Most of the early generation Mustang weather strip for the trunks get installed the same way. This is Scott Drake's Trunk Weatherstrip. It's going to fit your 65 through 70 Mustang Coupe or convertible. While the weather strip can be installed with the trunk lid on the vehicle, it's much easier to take the trunk lid off. Get some tape, mark where the hinges are, remove the bolts, and remove your trunk lid. Make sure you put something underneath the corners of the trunk lid if you're doing this by yourself so it doesn't damage your paint. This is typical of the weather stripping we find on a lot of classic Mustangs. Because it's glued on, people are afraid to take it off. This car was actually painted and somebody left the weather stripping on. That's the worst thing you can do because the paint actually makes the weather strip dry out even faster. You can see how it's cracked, pieces of it are chipping off. It definitely isn't doing the job and needs to be replaced. We're going to start removing the existing weather stripping. This can be a long and tedious process, but you want to do as good a job as possible because the cleaner you get the surface from the old weather strip, the better the new stuff's going to stick. Plastic pry bar is probably your best tool here. Just get underneath the corner, start prying it up, and start removing it. Once you get the bigger pieces off, we're going to spray this adhesive cleaner on first. It's basically a cleaner slash remover. It'll soften up what's left once you let it sit for a few minutes, make it a little bit easier to get it off. Like I said, this part will be tedious, but the better job you do here, the better job your new weather stripping is going to do. Once you scrape and get the trunk lid as clean as possible, you'll want to go back through some isopropyl alcohol. Just put it on a rag of some sort and go all around the edge to get it as clean as possible for the adhesive. The question we get often is actually how the weather strip is supposed to seat when it's attached to your trunk lid. If you look, there's a flat section at the bottom here and it kind of goes around in a C. You want the C towards the inside of the trunk lid, so this round edge will be on the outside edge, and this is actually where you glue. Take some isopropyl alcohol, again, once you clean the trunk lid, just go over this flat section as well, make sure it's clean again so the adhesive sticks as good as possible. And grab your weather strip adhesive and put a thin strip starting in the center just for the first quarter over to the edge here. Just go right to the corner with the first section. Basically the same length with the weather strip. Again, put a thin amount on there. Don't use a lot, just a thin amount on the weather strip. You don't want it going everywhere on you. Make sure the weather strip is orientated properly though, so when you do put it on, the C faces the inside like we said. Once you put weather strip on both, I like to wait 30 to 45 seconds. Give it enough time to get a little bit tacky, and then we're going to put it on, tape it down to hold it, which we're going to show you in a second. The weather strip's going to sit in this edge. If you look, there is a little lip. It goes right up on that lip and then follows it around the entire trunk lid. You're going to make sure you start with the latch and then work your way around. Basically what you want to do is do one section at a time and slowly work your way around the entire trunk lid so you get back to the latch where you started. Always going to have extra. You want to make sure you get the cut as straight as possible and as even as possible. It butts right up against it just like that. At this point, the weather strip installation is pretty much finished. If you can, I suggest letting it set up overnight. By doing that, you'll make sure the adhesive is dry and the weather strip is bonded properly to your trunk lid. Once it's dried, remove all of our green body tape, reinstall the trunk lid, and your installation is finished. Overall, the trunk weather strip installation isn't too bad. The only tools you're going to need is a 1/2-inch socket to remove the bolts to remove your trunk lid, and then whatever plastic scrapers you use to get the original weather stripping off. That is going to be the longest part of the process, but make sure you do a good job so the new one seals properly. When you put your trunk lid back on the car, you may need to adjust the latch to get it to seat properly. The new weather strip is going to be thicker than your original. In many cases, the trunk may have been adjusted to make up for the old weather stripping. Overall, take your time, let it set up overnight, and you'll be back on the road in no time.